Call now.
Live from Chicago, this is Fox 32 News at noon.
And right now at noon, the Supreme Court has ruled on President Trump's tariff authority. We will tell you what the court decided and its potential impact on American companies and consumer prices. Bears fans are hoping they will not have to drive to Indiana to see the team play. Some of them, anyway. We've got more on their search to find a new home. And taking a live look outside right now, we've got a cold weekend ahead. February-like, after the spring-like temperatures earlier this week. And we hope you are having a great Friday, everybody. We appreciate you joining us this noon. I'm Anthony Ponce. Let's take another live look outside right now to gauge how conditions are looking and check in as well with Mr. Mark Strell. How are we doing outside on Friday?
That's a good gauge, just checking outside, checking the radar. I got to tell you, the wind gauge is spinning around quite a bit today because it's very windy, and the temperature gauge, the thermometer, has kind of dropped off here from where we've been over the past 24 to 48 hours. In fact, here's how things look right now. Our temperatures, 34 degrees at O'Hare, 34 degrees at Midway, 33 along the lake, and a lot of low 30s around Chicago, from 31 degrees in DeKalb, 30 degrees right now, Fox River Grove, 30 degrees now in LaSalle, Peru. There is a high wind advisory that is posted for the entire area as we go through the rest of the afternoon into this evening. You can see it stretches all the way out into north central Illinois, all the way across northern Indiana into southern Michigan. We'll have some winds gusting at times up to 40 miles per hour. And already we're at 45 mile per hour wind gusts at O'Hare, 43 mile per hour wind gusts. Those 45 mile per hour wind gusts right now sliding in at Midway. And you can see it is blustery, to say the least, everywhere you look. Right now, 51 mile per hour wind gusts have been recorded at Gary. Hold on to your small children.
Indeed. Yeah. They're blow away. Holding on to the hat as well. Mark, thank you, sir. The top story this noon, the Supreme Court striking down President Trump's emergency tariff authority. In this decision, they ruled it is illegal to use the Emergency Powers Act to impose tariffs, which undercuts the legal foundation behind the rationale of these tariffs, according to President Trump, including those at the center of the lawsuit filed by a company that is in Vernon Hills. The Treasury has collected more than $133 billion on those taxes so far. We spoke with an expert this morning about what this could mean for the short and long term.
I think in the short term or the long term, hopefully we should see, prices coming down on, many of the goods that we are buying on a day-to-day basis. And I think from a long term, your retirement account standpoint, don't look at it at all, right? I think we'll see certain sectors starting to perform better, whether we're talking apparels, right? Whether that's, the Nikes, the Lululemons, et cetera, that are being assembled and made in, other countries, right? We might start to see, okay, some of those prices are coming down, which helps them from a profit standpoint. So once again, right, I think when it's all said and done, as a long-term investor, this is all noise, and I think no one even needs to pay attention to it. But on the short term, this very well can start seeing the cost of living get back to a more normalized level.
And many American companies are already starting the process of going to court to seek refunds. Other news, authorities are investigating a freight train derailment that happened early this morning in South Suburban Harvey. As we take a look at the scene from earlier this morning, you can see that freight car toppled over right near the 140th and Spalding Avenue intersection. CSX says 17 cars like that one went off the tracks. The train blocking 3 different crossings, Roby Avenue, Lincoln Avenue, and Western Avenue, otherwise not affecting traffic. And fortunately, nobody was hurt, and fortunately, nothing hazardous was leaked or spilled. All right, to sports now. People still kind of wrapping their minds around the possibility of the Indiana Bears. Saquon has the very latest.
We are out here at Soldier Field, the current home of the Bears, and the million-dollar question everyone's asking this morning, will they stay or will they go? First, I want you to take a look at this aerial view of the proposed site out in Hammond, Indiana, and look at this. It's a long ways away from that beautiful Chicago skyline, which hugs the current home of the Bears. The Bears actually put out a statement yesterday saying that the team would be shifting towards this, Hammond, that is, to build their new stadium. Hammond is about 20 miles from Soldier Field. Takes roughly 30 minutes to get there without traffic, but it is also only about 10 minutes from the Skyway that leads right into Chicago. This all comes after the Indiana House Ways and Means Committee passed a bill that creates the legal and financial framework to move forward with the new stadium. We actually heard from the mayor of Hammond yesterday, who talked about the opportunities this move could bring to that area.
It's going to create thousands of jobs. The Bears themselves is thousands of jobs, not to mention the construction jobs that go into the stadium, the parking facilities around the stadium, and the ancillary development that's going to come. And it's going to come. If you're in Chicago, you already got a theater district. You already got hotels. You got all this great development. I have a feeling when we locate this to Hammond and we make this whole development over there, you're going to see the same types of things that develop in downtown Chicago start to develop in Hammond.
Illinois lawmakers, on the other hand, say they were completely blindsided after a 3-hour meeting on legislation that would give the Bears tax certainty and allow them to build in Arlington Heights. They were actually scheduled to have a hearing on that legislation yesterday, but lawmakers said it was the Bears that called off that hearing and that CEO Kevin Warren was a no-show. Governor Pritzker not too thrilled about that Bears statement yesterday. Listen.
To have a statement put out by the Bears. Now they're saying to us that that statement is not some confirmation that they're moving to Indiana, but rather that Indiana had asked them to say that, you know, they're going to move forward with the negotiations in Indiana.
This is a project that could cost the Bears $2 billion. And keep in mind, too, there's still some work to be done here. This has to pass through the full Indiana House and Senate before it gets sent to the governor's desk for final approval. Reporting at Soldier Field, Saquon, Fox Chicago.
And the schedule for services for Reverend Jesse Jackson is changing a little bit here. There's now going to be services in both South Carolina and Washington, D.C. Here's a closer look here. Reverend Jackson will now lie in state at the Rainbow Push Coalition headquarters next Thursday and Friday. Services will be held in Washington, D.C. and South Carolina March 1st through the 5th. And then back here in Chicago, there will be a People's Celebration at House of Hope. That's happening Friday, March 6th. And then a private homegoing celebration at Rainbow Push will happen Saturday, March 7th. A live stream of services will also be made public. Family and friends of Ofelia Torres just laid her to rest after her passing earlier this week. Torres took to social media to bring awareness to families affected by Operation Midway Blitz after her own father was detained by ICE. Her father, Ruben Torres Maldonado, was picked up last October. Ofelia, before her death, appealed to authorities to release her dad, since his absence meant her cancer treatment could have been in jeopardy. A judge agreed. He was released. Her funeral started at 10 a.m. at St. William Parish. The owner of Reflection Spa in Hinsdale has pled not guilty in court this morning after police say that he filmed his customers using a hidden camera. A grand jury indictment filed this week shows 51-year-old Jason Wade Spencer of Texas is facing 64 felony counts for allegedly recording customers without their knowledge. Prosecutors say the videos were apparently made between mid-July and late November of 2024. Police discovered hidden cameras and a hard drive after they received a tip. Governor Pritzker visited Oak Park River Forest High School this morning to highlight his school cell phone ban proposal. The goal of the ban is to fight distractions at school. It's also meant to help improve the mental health of students and also stop cyberbullying. And while talking with students and faculty members there, Governor Pritzker said schools who have already implemented the policies are giving a good signal that it is indeed effective.
We have a dramatic amount of evidence that these policies improve students' academic performance as well as their health and well-being. Bullying goes down while grade point averages and advanced placement tests at schools that have banned cell phones goes up. Attendance at after-school events increases, and these bans are also overwhelmingly popular, supported by 90% of teachers and 65% of parents.
The ban would apply to grades K through 12, with some exceptions made for medical reasons and emergencies. All right, we have more news here on the Fox 32 News at noon. An art exhibit at the center of a legal battle between President Trump and the city of Philadelphia. That exhibit is being restored. We will talk about what could happen next.
A major ruling from the U.S. Supreme Court deciding the president's tariffs are illegal. I'm Caroline Shively. I'll have that story coming up.
And I approve this message.
Welcome back. 12:12 on your Friday afternoon. President Trump is reportedly considering a strike on Iran to force that country to accept his demands for a nuclear agreement. Caroline Shively has more.
A show of force from Iran and the U.S. Iranian forces and Russian sailors conducting annual drills as the U.S. continues to build up U.S. troops in the Middle East. The USS Gerald Ford aircraft carrier nearing the mouth of the Mediterranean Sea. At the White House, the moves come as President Trump reportedly weighs a limited strike on Iran, saying Iran has 10 to 15 days maximum to reach an agreement with the U.S. on its nuclear program.
Well, we'll either make a deal or we're going to get a deal one way or the other.
Iran's Minister of Foreign Affairs voicing optimism Friday a deal can be reached, saying Iran has agreed to drop a written proposal to address U.S. concerns.
We agreed on a set of principles or guiding principles for our negotiation and how a deal can look like.
Meantime, Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu issued a fresh warning to Iran not to attack.
We are prepared for every scenario. And one thing is certain, if the Ayatollahs make a mistake and attack us, they will receive a response that they cannot even imagine.
This as Iran's UN ambassador, in a letter to the UN Security Council, issued a warning should Iran be subjected to military aggression, writing, quote, Iran will respond decisively and proportionately in the exercise of its inherent right of self-defense.
Our demands have been clear for quite some time. Iran cannot have a nuke.
The Wall Street Journal reports that sources familiar with the matter say if there is an initial strike by the U.S., only a few military or government sites would be targeted. In Washington, Caroline Shively, Fox Chicago.
A slavery exhibit removed by the Trump administration is returning back to Independence Mall in Philadelphia. The exhibit shows the history of the 9 people once enslaved by President George Washington. It had been on display in the hall for 2 decades, but was removed last month after an executive order from the president. It called for, quote, restoring truth and sanity to American history at the nation's museums, parks, and landmarks. The administration argued that it alone can decide what stories are told at Park Service properties across the U.S. The city filed a lawsuit in response, and a judge ruled that the exhibit must be restored by today. National Park Service workers started to reinstall the exhibit yesterday.
There are a lot of eyes on the U.S., particularly in the next couple of months, in years, with the 250th celebration coming up and with the Olympics. A lot of people are going to be coming through these streets, and it's a very historic town, but it's important that we acknowledge the history of America, all of our history, whether that's easy or the difficult history that is tackled here and acknowledged here.
The U.S. Attorney's Office is appealing Senior U.S. District Judge Cynthia Roof's ruling to restore that exhibit. All right, here is a view of our skyline. It looks a little overcast, a little gray out there. Mark Strell, it's looking a little more like late February.
Yeah,
and
you know what? That's convenient because it kind of syncs up with the calendar, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for a change.
For a change, yeah, and that's that's a change that a lot of folks are familiar with, but I'd like to get back to the change we had just a couple of days ago with temperatures into the 60s. No 60s coming our way, but we do have temperatures that will be pushing back up into the 40s, maybe some 50s coming up here over the next 7 to 10 days. Right now, while we're slightly below normal, we had temperatures that topped out a little bit warmer than this earlier today. However, those warm temperatures came just after midnight, and we've been falling since. A lot of clouds. Winds are going to continue to pick up as we go throughout the rest of the day and into the afternoon. Satellite and radar, yeah, we've had some snow around today. Not much, which is really accumulated. Maybe some grassy areas. Nothing really too significant, but we have had some snow, so quite a stark change from the last 48 hours. Temperatures right now, 33 at the lakefront, 34 at both of the airports, low 30s out through the Fox Valley. Those temperatures are going to continue to fall as we go through the rest of the afternoon. And along with temperatures in the 30s, the thing that makes it feel like cutting through you like a knife are the high winds. Wind advisory has been posted for Chicago and the entire region for the rest of the afternoon through this evening. Look at these wind gusts, 51 mile per hour wind gusts now at Gary, 45 mile per hour wind gusts at Midway, and 43 mile per hour wind gusts at O'Hare. It is one of those days where you want to keep your hands firmly grasped to the wheel because you can get whipped around, especially if you're in a van or a high profile vehicle. So take it easy today.
Good advice. Mark, thank you very much. Rebecca Castor is going to join us live from Tucson because the search for Nancy Guthrie is now entering its 20th day. She'll have an update in just a few minutes. Plus, a local disabled veteran is once again fearing he's going to lose his home after a back and forth with U.S. Bank. Tia Ewing is going to be joining us in the studio with the latest update on his story. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. The search for Nancy Guthrie has now entered its 20th day. There are still hopes that progress can be made thanks to genetic genealogy testing. Rebecca Castor is joining us now with the very latest. And Rebecca, let me just start off by asking you about this genealogy aspect of it. What kind of breakthrough could that lead to?
Oh, that could be a major breakthrough, Anthony. It's something that investigators are really hoping will come through to them, especially since they've already put some of the DNA through the FBI databases. It hasn't gotten any hits, so that is why they are turning to this genetic testing. So they're going to go through these public databases out there right now. But if they also want to go through private companies, a lot of us are familiar with Ancestry.com, 23andMe. That's something that they're going to have to work with these private companies with directly. And in most cases, those companies, they'll require the investigators to get a warrant before they allow them access to their private databases. So again, this is why this is something that could take some time. But if people will think back to the case in Idaho a few years ago with Bryan Kohberger, this is how investigators tracked him down. So they've had success with this before, and they're hoping that it will be the breakthrough in this case as well.
What is the time frame on these? I know that this can take a while, right?
Yeah, right. So we're talking about Bryan Kohberger here. That's one of the most high-profile cases in recent years where they've had success with this. That took about 6 weeks after those murders in Idaho before Bryan Kohberger was able to be identified through a family tree and ultimately arrested. So again, it can go quicker if, somebody. The best case scenario for investigators here is that this suspect who left their DNA inside Nancy Guthrie's home is part of a large family, and that somebody in his family, whether it be a cousin, an uncle, they did public genealogy testing, and they used one of those public services instead of one of those private companies, because it's going to take longer to find a family tree through a private company. But if they did it through one of those public databases, they'll get that information sooner, and then it will be quicker for investigators to start building that family tree and start narrowing it down to somebody.
There has been criticism, Rebecca, about this investigation from the president. He's alluded to the fact that authorities in his mind are revealing too much about the search. Could that hurt the case?
Yeah, that was an interesting point that the president made the other day. He said that he didn't think it was smart that some of the investigators have kind of released, he thinks they're releasing too many details to the public about some of their specific search techniques. He specifically did not like that the information got out there to the media. We've been reporting it. The investigators are using Bluetooth technology to try to locate Nancy's pacemaker. He pointed out, hey, the kidnappers could hear that, and he doesn't even want to think about what could happen if they decide to make that something that's no longer possible. So again, investigators, they are keeping a lot of these details out of the media and keeping a lot of details private, but President Trump thinks they need to be keeping more of these details out of the media as well.
All right, one more question for you, Rebecca, before we let you go. The status of public tips. I know that thousands and thousands of public tips have come in. Are investigators getting anything helpful, or are they just wading through a mountain of nonsense here?
Yeah, unfortunately, our team did speak with folks at the call center here that are fielding through a lot of these calls that are coming in. And unfortunately, the vast majority of them, they told us that the majority of their calls are actually just people calling to give their opinion on the case or to talk about these, online conspiracy theories. And they just want to get the message out there that that is completely not helpful to the investigation at this point. But they also want to reiterate as well that if, especially people in the community here, keep jogging your brain over everything that's happened over the last 2-3 weeks. Start thinking about people in your orbit that maybe you haven't seen in the last 18, 19, 20 days, people that have had a changed behavior in the last 3 weeks. Those are the tips that they want, and those are the tips that they think are credible right now.
All right, Rebecca Castor in Tucson, Arizona for us. Thank you very much. Okay, the president right now is speaking about the Supreme Court ruling that his tariff policy is illegal. So let's take a listen to the president.
Years. Well, we didn't do it in 4 years. We did it in 1 year. We broke every record in the book, and we're continuing to do so. Tariffs have likewise been used to end 5 of the 8 wars that I settled. I settled 8 wars, whether you like it or not, including India, Pakistan, big ones, nuclear, could have been nuclear. Prime Minister of Pakistan said yesterday at the great meeting that we had, the Peace Board, he said yesterday that President Trump could have saved 35 million lives by getting us to stop fighting. They were getting ready to do some bad things. But they've given us great national security, these tariffs have. And together with our strong borders, reduced fentanyl coming into our country by 30%. When I use them as a penalty against countries illegally sending this poison into our country to poison our youth, all of those tariffs remain. They all remain. I don't know if you know that or not. They all remain. We're still getting them, and we will after the decision. I guess there's nobody left to appeal to. But again, those three people, such respect. I've had a lot of respect for them anyway, but such great respect. But other alternatives will now be used to replace the ones that the court incorrectly rejected. We have alternatives, great alternatives. Could be more money. We'll take in more money, and we'll be a lot stronger for it. We're taking in hundreds of billions of dollars. We'll continue to do so. To show you how ridiculous the opinion is, however, the court said that I'm not allowed to charge even $1. I can't charge $1. Can't charge $1. I would have used 1 penny, but we don't make the pennies anymore. We save money. Can't charge $1 to any country under IEPA. Not $1. I assume to protect other countries. This must have been done to protect those other countries, certainly not the United States of America, which they should be interested in protecting. That's what they're supposed to be protecting. But I am allowed to cut off any and all trade or business with that same country. In other words, I can destroy the trade. I can destroy the country. I'm even allowed to impose a foreign country-destroying embargo. I can embargo. I can do anything I want, but I can't charge $1. Because that's not what it says. And that's not the way it even reads. I can do anything I want to do to them, but I can't charge any money. So I'm allowed to destroy the country, but I can't charge them a little fee. I could give them a little 2-cent fee, but I cannot charge under any circumstances. I cannot charge them anything. Think of that. How ridiculous is that? I'm allowed to embargo them. I'm allowed to tell them you can't do business in the United States anymore. We want you out of here. But if I want to charge them $10, I can't do that. It's incorrect. Their decision's incorrect. But it doesn't matter because we have very powerful alternatives that have been approved by this decision. You know, they've been approved by the decision for those that thought they had us. And they're saying that I have the absolute right to license, but not the right to charge a license fee. So think of that. I have the right to license, which is a very powerful word. In many ways, license is more powerful than tariffs. In fact, I was thinking about using it. But they came up with the idea that I can license, just like the people that were opposing me told them to do, but not the right to charge a license fee. Think of that. Who ever heard of such a thing? What license has ever been issued without the right to charge a fee? You get a license, you charge a fee. It's automatic, but not with this court. But now the court has given me the unquestioned right to ban all sorts of things from coming into our country, to destroy foreign countries, but a much more powerful right than many people ever thought we even had, but not the right to charge a fee. How crazy is that? Our country is the hottest country anywhere in the world right now. And it was a dead country 1.5 years ago under an incompetent president. But now I'm going to go in a different direction, probably the direction that I should have gone the first time, but I read the language. I'm very good at reading language, and it read our way 100%, but now I'll go the way I could have gone originally, which is even stronger than our original choice. As Justice Kavanaugh, whose stock has gone so up, you have to see, I'm so proud of him, wrote in his dissent, although I firmly disagree with the court's holding today, the decision might not substantially constrain a president's ability to order tariffs going forward. So, think of that. The decision might not substantially constrain. And it doesn't. He's right. In fact, I can charge much more than I was charging. So I'm going to just start. Although I firmly disagree with the court's holding today, the decision might not substantially constrain a president's ability to order tariffs going forward. That's because numerous other federal statutes, which is so true, authorize the president to impose tariffs and might justify most, if not all, of the tariffs issued in this case. Even more tariffs, actually. Those statutes include, think of that, those statutes include, for example, the Trade Expansion Act of 1962, Section 232. All of these things I know so well. The Trade Act of 1974, Sections 122, 201, 301. And the Tariff Act of 1930, Section 338, all clear. But it's a little bit longer process. I thought I'd make things simple, but they didn't let us do that. I would like to thank Justice Kavanaugh for frankly, his genius and his great ability. Very proud of that appointment. In actuality, while I am sure that they did not mean to do so, the Supreme Court's decision today made a president's ability to both regulate trade and impose tariffs more powerful and more crystal clear rather than less. I don't think they meant that. I'm sure they didn't. It's terrible. And to think that the Democrats who oppose this only because they want to go the opposite way, they'd like to pack the court. They want to put on 21 people. They want to pack the court, pack the Supreme Court. Maybe they should do it. Maybe they would be better off if they did it. They want to pack the court. They want to do anything to hurt our country. There will no longer be any doubt, and the income coming in and the protection of our companies and country will actually increase because of this decision. I don't think the court meant that, but it's the way it is. Based on long-standing law and hundreds of victories, and even, as I was pointed out before, even thousands of victories over the years, to the contrary, the Supreme Court did not overrule tariffs. They merely overruled a particular use of IEEPA tariffs. And essentially, it's to use to get a fee. I can do anything I want with IEEPA, anything. I just can't charge anybody for it. I can license, I just can't charge them. It's ridiculous, but it's okay because we have other ways, numerous other ways. The ability to block, embargo, restrict, license, or impose any other condition on a foreign country's ability to conduct trade with the United States under IEEPA has been fully confirmed by this decision. So now there's no doubt, because, you know, there were a lot of questions about tariffs because no president was smart enough to use them to protect our country from those countries and businesses that were ripping us off. You took a look at the deficits that we had with some of these countries. It was disgraceful what they got away with for many, many decades. But now we know, because this decision affirms all those things that some people weren't sure about. In order to protect, and it says so, in order to protect our country, a president can actually charge more tariffs than I was charging in the past period of a year under the various tariff authorities. So we can use other of the statutes, other of the tariff authorities, which have also been confirmed and are fully allowed. Therefore, effective immediately, all national security tariffs under Section 232 and existing Section 301 tariffs, they're existing, they're there, remain in place, fully in place, and in full force and effect. Today, I will sign an order to impose a 10% global tariff under Section 122, over and above our normal tariffs already being charged. And we're also initiating several Section 301 and other investigations to protect our country from unfair trading practices of other countries and companies. Thank you for your attention to this matter, and I say quite simply, which I've said for a long time, make America great again. And interestingly, we've already made it great, so I don't have to use that, but I don't think we'll ever give up on MAGA. MAGA is always going to be with us. If you have a few questions, you can let us know. But just to end, so we're going forward. We will be able to take in more money, and there'll no longer be doubt, because there was always doubt. I know the people that brought the lawsuit, and they're sleazebags, major sleazebags, but I know them, and they're foreign country centric. They were sending things into our country, and the people representing them knew full well, but they were sending things into our country, and they were beneficial to other countries, but very, very bad for us. And I stopped it, and we'll just keep it going. So we have a totally firm decision now, and I don't think the court meant it, because the court doesn't show great spirit toward our country, in my opinion. A lot of bad decisions, but there are usually ways around it. This is something we could have done, as Justice Kavanaugh said, we could have done this originally, but we're doing it now, and the numbers could be far greater than the hundreds of billions we've already taken in. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, I'm very curious.
Thank
you so much, Mr. President. Justice Thomas and Alito, as you know, are the most conservative constitutional justices. Do you think that you'll get to appoint 2 more justices later this term with similar ideologies? And what type of vetting process will they go through to ensure they uphold?
I don't know, but they're great justices. That's all I can say. And I hope they're going to be around a long time. I hope they're going to stay healthy. They're great people. They're great. And Justice Alito, too, to add to the group. These are great men.
Right.
With a great love of our country and a great understanding of the law.
Mr. President, are you going to ask Congress to take additional action on tariffs now?
No, I don't need to. It's already been approved. I mean, I would ask Congress and probably get it. When people look at the real numbers, and you look at hundreds of billions of dollars that have come into our country. Yesterday, I was at a steel plant, as you know, and I went to great place, great plant, great, wonderful people. And they were telling me, I said to them, you were there, a lot of the press in this room. Of course, I don't think this plane's big enough to take the press in this room, but a lot of the press right here. We were in Georgia. And I said to the owner, I made a speech at a factory. They make steel products. And I said, how are you? Nice to meet you. How's business? President, I'd love to kiss you. This is a very powerful man. I don't want to be kissed by that man, but a very powerful, strong man. He's been in the steel business for many years. His father started it. And he said, sir, I want to kiss you. I said, why? He said, because we were down to working 1 hour a week, and then you came in and imposed tariffs, and all of that foreign junk that they were dropping into our country stopped. And we're now going to double shifts, 7 days a week, and we may be very soon going to 24 hours around the clock, almost 7 days a week.
If you were just joining us, you are listening to
to
President Trump. He is addressing the media in the wake of the Supreme Court's decision ruling his so-called emergency tariffs unconstitutional, saying that it's illegal in a 6-3 decision. We will have the very latest on the alternative measures that Donald Trump just alluded to there. In terms of an alternative, perhaps even, according to President Trump, increased tariffs compared to what is already in place. We'll have the very latest on his next moves coming up on our news at 4 and 5. For now, we are going to talk about a disabled veteran. His name is Martin Guest, who is once again facing foreclosure. After some back and forth with U.S. Bank, this has been happening for the last couple of years. Tia Ewing has been following his story and joins us here on set with more on this situation. Tia?
Yeah, it's really a disheartening story because this is one of those stories where we jumped in and we thought that we had this all settled. So let me kind of walk you through the timeline here. Martin Guest, he lives in the Glenwood area. He bought his home. He's a 100% disabled veteran, and in fact, he bought his home from another disabled veteran. That was in the year of 2023. He thought for sure he wouldn't get a tax bill because when you are deemed to be a 100% disabled vet, you do not pay taxes in the state of Illinois. Well, come July of 2024, he received a tax bill for over $10,000, and that is when we stepped in to get him some resolve. So fast forward to the year of 2025, November 2025. That's when Martin Guest told us in the mail he received a foreclosure notice. And that is when we contacted, of course, the Cook County offices, the officials here, the tax assessor, and then we also contacted his mortgage lender, U.S. Bank. And they actually told us that they were working with Guest to get this resolved, and actually gave us this quote saying that it was the county's error, and that from that point on November 19th, they would be sitting down with Guest to figure out what went wrong and to get this all handled. But we just got a text message and correspondence from Martin Guest last week saying that he is once again facing foreclosure. So this is a situation right now where we are contacting the mortgage lender, and we will also be reaching out to Cook County officials to see what is going on. You know, when you think of your home, you think of home sweet home for veterans.
Right.
Home is, you know, where they eventually want to be, right, in peace. They've served their country, and this is not how veterans in our community should be treated.
No.
So we're working on it. And hopefully we get some answers the next time we sit down and talk about this.
Sure, he's glad to have you and your reporting in his corner here. Tia, thank you very much for that update. It's 12:41, and it's time to check back in with Mr. Mark Strell, who has another look at our Friday forecast as we head into the weekend here, Mark.
Yeah, a way different forecast than it was a week ago. Today we're looking at cloudy skies. We've had some snow around after some showers and thunderstorms within the last 12 to 18 hours. We're at 34 degrees right now. Winds out of the west at 19 makes it feel more like 23. That's kind of how February normally feels. A little bit of light snow flurry, snow shower activity. Not a whole lot happening here that's very impactful. You may see a little bit of additional light accumulation, maybe in some grassy areas. That's about it. Temperatures now 34 at both of the airports, 33 downtown. Winds, though, are gusting. They are howling this afternoon, up to 50-mile-per-hour plus winds at Gary on the south side of the lake. Temperatures in the 30s right through the weekend. Here's a look at your weekend forecast. We have a mix of clouds and sun. We do have some small chances for additional snow showers. A little bit of lake effect snow also coming down the lake, possibly coming up late in the weekend as well. Not huge outbreaks of snow, not the huge occurrences of snow, but there is a small chance. And then we get back into temperatures that are a little closer to what you might like in the 7-day forecast. We've got 35 today, temperatures pushing into the 40s during the 7-day forecast. Stick around. We're coming back.
welcome back. There is a heart rhythm condition that can silently raise your risk of stroke, and it's going underdiagnosed among women and people of color. Anita Blanton kicks off our Chicago Live interviews from up in Studio 32 on that topic and more. Hi, Anita.
Anthony, clearly from what you just described, I'm going to be all ears on this interview. So we're talking about atrial fibrillation, or AFib, more commonly known as that. It affects over 6 million people in the U.S. And here's the thing, that number is expected to actually double by 2030. So let's go ahead and bring in Dr. Arjun Mehta. He is a cardiologist who we've called on many times before for matters of the heart, let's say. And let's start with the basics here, Dr. Mehta. What is atrial fibrillation, and how do we know if we have it?
Yes, so as you stated, atrial fibrillation is a rhythm that affects 6 million Americans, but worldwide even more, and is expected actually to double in terms of its prevalence by 2030. AFib is a rhythm when the top chambers of the heart, which are supposed to vigorously contract, are instead just quivering. And that quivering can form a blood clot within the heart, which is then ejected out into the bloodstream. And the first exit on the highway out of the heart is the brain. And if that blood clot goes to the brain, subsequently it can produce a stroke.
Yeah, and it happens so often. Why is it so underdiagnosed in women and people of color specifically?
Yes, it's underdiagnosed in general because the symptoms are more subtle. It's not like a heart attack where you'll have apparent and dramatic symptoms. But particularly in people of color and women, we see that the medical system is, not as accessible, and that people are not, for screening tests are not being brought to their primary care physicians to identify this rhythm. And so what you start to see is that, particularly in people of color and women, you start to see the negative consequences like strokes and heart failure more often in those populations.
Yeah, I've seen it in my own family, but I even saw that retired NFL players are 6 times more likely to develop AFib compared to all of us regular folks. Why is that?
Yeah, we have seen a correlation between specifically endurance athletes and atrial fibrillation. There's multiple theories about it, but it's just something that should be, well known. But more often in the general public, things like sleep apnea, high blood pressure, and obesity can make you predisposed to atrial fibrillation.
And if you're diagnosed, what is treatment? What does management look like?
Yeah, so I'm specifically, I'm a cardiologist, but I'm a cardiac electrophysiologist. So I deal with the heart rhythm abnormalities. I say when the heart's going too fast or too slow, I get involved. And so there's a multitude of strategies that we have nowadays to deal with atrial fibrillation. One of them being blood thinners. That's the simplest and most effective. But also we have various procedures that we do now that can control and diminish the amount of atrial fibrillation. This procedure is called an ablation procedure. Alternatively, we have other medication strategies.
Now, when you talk about getting tested, what types of tests would we get and when?
Yeah, so with the increase in wearables like Fitbits and Apple Watches, that's a great tool nowadays to check for sort of quote-unquote irregularity of the heart rhythm. But in general, an EKG or just identifying, if you used to be able to walk a mile, but now you can only walk half a block, a decline in your exercise capacity. If you're feeling palpitations or heart racing, shortness of breath, chest pain, lightheadedness. These are some of the symptoms that you should probably see at least a primary care doctor for, and can be signs of AFib.
Dr. Mehta, thank you so much for sharing your expertise as always. I'm sure we'll be calling back on you soon. Thank you, though. We want everyone to join us for Chicago Live between 1 and 4 p.m. today. We have a great lineup of weekend events we're going to be talking about. The 11th annual Sleep Out for Homelessness, Gentle Warrior Awards for Chicago's Pullman Porter Museum, the Boys Book Bonanza that's bringing reading joy to Greater Grand Crossing. We're also going to be talking about mental health and Cubs tickets going on sale. And you know, we're staying on top of the big stories of the day with some important conversations on U.S.-Iran tensions. We have a foreign policy expert on that. A policy analyst with the Cato Institute is going to join me to talk about the big Supreme Court decision that you just heard President Trump reacting to there. And we're going to have Alderman Villegas, who's going to join me shortly, about city council members pushing for a nationwide search for a qualified executive director of Chicago Animal Care and Control. Don't miss a minute of it. We'll be right here online between 1 and 4 p.m. You can join us on fox32chicago.com, Fox Local, or on YouTube. See you then.
Com. All right, taking a live look at the New York Stock Exchange. Right now it's trading just over 49,600. Okay, it's time to look now at the rest of our business headlines with CJ Papa.
Amazon is now America's biggest company by annual revenue. It has topped Walmart, which held the title since 2009. Walmart had more than $713 billion in sales for its year ending January 31st. Amazon's full year had more than $716 billion. The Wall Street Journal says it's a sign Amazon sales are growing faster than Walmart's. In addition to retail, Amazon earns much of its profits from cloud computing and advertising. Tesla has unveiled a cheaper Cybertruck, which starts at under $60,000. It also lowered the starting price of the high-performance Cyber Beast to under $100,000. Demand for electric vehicles has cooled since federal tax credits for buyers expired last year. And Starbucks wants you back in the afternoon. The Wall Street Journal says the company CEO Brian Niccol is working to make Starbucks a credible all-day snack and beverage business. Among Starbucks changes, digital menu boards across its U.S. stores that can highlight items better suited to afternoon, and selling matcha drinks, flatbreads, and protein energy bites. The coffee giant has long-term goals to open as many as 5,000 new coffee houses in the U.S. That's a lot of frappuccinos. That's business. CJ Papa, Fox Chicago.
All right, it's 12:55. We've got one final check of that forecast coming up right after this break. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. There is downtown, and you can tell by how much that camera is shaking up there at 2800 mark that it is still windy out there, huh?
Oh, my goodness. In fact, there is a wind advisory posted until 5 o'clock this afternoon. Very windy conditions. In fact, I've seen some 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts on the south end of the lake here this early morning and early afternoon. We have temperatures in the 30s right across the weekend. A lot of cloud cover. Temperatures like this, conditions like this, pretty typical of what we'd see in February. So here's the setup. Got a low pressure area just kind of spinning through the upper Great Lakes. For us, some clouds, occasional peak of sunshine over the weekend, and we also have some occasional snow showers around. Nothing really too major. We've had that earlier this morning. We'll have another chance later on this weekend, and then another chance as we go later into the weekend as we head into Sunday. And this is largely affected by this stalled low pressure area that's also hurling a little bit of moisture down the lake, especially the south side of the lake. That looks like we could actually pick up some minor accumulations coming up later in the weekend. So today, high temperatures around 35, pretty close to where we are now. Where we were at midnight was actually our 24-hour high, and it's been downhill ever since. 28 overnight tonight, tomorrow more the same, some clouds, breezy conditions, temperatures in the 30s, but warmer conditions